My name's Andy McGrath. I am the buyer for Hexagon Classics. I essentially buy all the used cars for the Classic Group. By and large, we buy cars for our South Kensington showroom between the years sort of 60s, 70s and 80s. We predominantly buy Ferrari, Aston Martin, Maserati and Mercedes-Benz. Some classic Porsche from the 60s and early 70s, but predominantly Italian and English thoroughbred cars. We look at a lot more cars than we buy because a lot of the cars that we look at don't meet our standards. And certainly with cars that are 30, 40 or 50 years old, one has to look at a lot of them before we pick the ones that we really want. Clearly buy a lot of our cars from England. The rest all over Europe. For example, this year we've been to Spain, Belgium, Italy and France. Next month, probably Germany. So very extensive traveling program. The criteria we have for buying cars, the word that comes to mind is quality. Good provenance and superb condition. Principally, we look for provenance, history, continuous ownership. If a car requires certain recommissioning to make it to our standard, then obviously we have the expertise to carry those works out. And the preparation process for most of our cars would be in the order of 1 to 3 months before they were ready or before they were showroom ready. I look at every individual car as if I were buying it for myself, to keep for myself. And I will only buy a car if I love it. The reality is that a lot of cars that we go to look at are not as good as we would require. And so we probably only buy a small percentage of those cars that we look at and that we would select as being good enough or having a good enough potential for our showrooms. Predominantly we buy Ferrari, Aston Martin, and we like to buy Maserati and Mercedes-Benz too. In terms of individual models, with Ferrari, we find at the moment 250s, 330s and 365 engine sizes of varying models, 330 GT, GTC, 250 PF and 365 GTB4 Daytona. With Aston Martin, DB4, DB5 and DB6 are our staple diet. Particularly DB5 are very hot at the moment, and DB6 not far behind. All Maseratis, well, Maseratis certainly at the late 60s, early 70s, are in our opinion undervalued, and we would expect some movement in that sector over the coming year or two. In an ideal world, we like cars. We like to buy cars from individuals who've owned them a long time, who've loved them, cared for them, spent some money on them. And they're the cars that we particularly like to buy and of course sell. And of course, if you have such a car, you are such an individual, we'd love to hear from you. I've been doing the job now for nearly 40 years, but you are always open to surprises. I went to Italy last week, for example, and bought a Maserati that had only covered 13,000 miles from new and had had one owner. I'd never seen another car like it in the 40 years that I've been doing this job. So yeah, there are always surprises. And I guess that's what makes you want to continue doing the job. We predominantly buy cars for our own stock. So we are buying classic cars with our own money. And so we're very, very focused on clearly what we buy because it's our money. We very rarely sell cars on consignment, and we like to buy the cars and own the cars ourselves.